On Daf Chavdalid Amud Aleph. We're holding 4 lines from the top where it says Ibaya Lohu. The Gemara continues with the sugya of Chanukah. Ibaya Lohu, the question was asked as follows. Ma'ol haskir shel Chanukah bebirchas hamazon. Do we mention Chanukah, which of course is al anissim and bimei matisyo, in benching? Even the Rabbanon, do I say that since benching, since the takana and the mitzvah of Chanukah is all med Rabbanon, loimet karinan. So it's not mentioned in benching. Or maybe mishum pirsume nisa mat karinan. But because there's an inyan to be mefarsim the nes of Chanukah, so although it's only med Rabbanon, nevertheless it's still mentioned in benching. As we'll see soon from the Hemshech of the Gemara, b'derech klal, the halacha is something that has a source in the Torah, b'negei to Shabbos, Rosh, chodesh, Yom Tif, there's a special carbon mussaf that's brought in the Beis HaMikdash in all these cases. Those are things that are mentioned in davening, you mention in benching, you say Ya'aleh v'yavai, but when it comes to something which is midrabanan, so then you don't mention it in benching. So, and not in the l'chayra, not in the davening either. But over here the question is, maybe mishum prisumi nisa, even though it's not minat Torah, it should be mentioned in benching. So both Rashi and Tosfos discuss, why does the Gemara talk only about benching and doesn't discuss davening? So Rashi says, davening, the Gemara knew for sure that it has to be mentioned in davening, because we said already before in Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis that the whole Yom Tov was established by Halal v'Hidah. Halal is saying Halal, and Haidah is the Haidah which you say Ala Nisim and B'mei Matisyo in the Bracha of Maidim. Tosfos says that benching, you bench in your house. Davening, you daven in the shul. So when you're davening in the shul, there's a bigger Pesumi Nisa, so that was pasha to the Gemara that you have to say it. The question is, when you bench in your house, and there's not that much Pesumi Nisa, do you have to say it as well? And for the Gemara, Amar Rav, Amar Rav Schayre, Amar Rav Huna. Eina masker. You don't mention Chanukah in benching. V'im bala hasker. If one wants to mention it, you're allowed, you could. Masker b'haidah. You mention it in the second bracha of Shmoneh Esrei, which begins with b'haidah, which begins with Naida. Rav Huna by Yehuda, Ikla lebeirove. Rav Huna by Yehuda was by Rove. Savar lat kure bebayni Yerushalayim. He was thinking to mention Chanukah in the bracha of Bayni Yerushalayim, similar to what we do with Shabbos and Rosh chodesh, that we say Ritzei or Ya'aleh v'yavai in the bracha of Bayni Yerushalayim. Amalu Rav Sheishe, so Rav Sheishe said kitfila. No, Chanukah, mentioning Chanukah and benching has to be similar to the way it's done in davening. Ma tefillah b'ydah, just as when it comes to mentioning ala nisim in davening, it's in the bracha of Maidim, not by Ritzei, where you say Ya'aleh v'yavai for Shabbos and Rosh chodesh. Af birchas hamazon b'ydah. So too in benching, you say it in the bracha of Maidim and not in the bracha of Ritzei. So Tosfos explains over here that the difference is when you say Ritzei and Ya'aleh v'yavai, there's a tefillah in it. Ritzei Hashem Elokeinu and Ya'aleh v'yavai v'yagia, it's a tefillah. And therefore that tefillah is mentioned in the bracha of Ritzei. We're also asking the Eibishter to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash and to bring Mashiach. Ala Nisim is a Haidah, thanking the Eibishter for the nes that happened. So therefore it belongs in the bracha of Maidim in Shmoneh Esrei, and it belongs in Haidah in the bracha of Naida in benching. Now, similarly, the question was asked, do we mention Rosh chodesh? Do we say Ya'aleh v'yavai in benching on Rosh chodesh? If we're going to say that on Chanukah, which is midrabanan, you don't have to, like we just said. We said before that when we get to Chanukah, that you don't have to. And by the way, I should mention that that's really the halacha, that you don't have to mention it, and therefore, if you forget, you don't bench over again, because really, you don't have to mention it. There is one day in the Rishonim, which is the Mardachai, that brings a shitta that even ala nisim on Chanukah, if you forgot to mention it, you have to bench over again. Even though the Gemara here says you don't have to mention it, you only could mention it if you want, but he says since it became the accepted minig to say ala nisim, so therefore if you forget, you have to bench over again. But that's not the angenumena shitta. We paskin that you say ala nisim, but if you forget it, you don't have to say it over again. So now the question is, if Chanukah, which is midrabanan loy tzarich, Rosh chodesh d'oraisa tzarich, Rosh chodesh, which is minat Torah, there's a special carbon mussaf on Rosh chodesh in the Beis Hamikdash. So over here, perhaps it does have to be mentioned in benching. Oidilme or kivin the loy asa basiyas malacha. It's not similar to Shabbos and Yom Tif. There's no isur of asiyas malacha. So therefore, loy maskirina. You don't have to say Ya'alav Yaveh in honor of Rosh chodesh and benching. So here the Gemara brings the machlokes. Rav says masker. You do mention Ya'alav Yaveh. You do say it on Rosh chodesh. Rab Chanina Amar. Rab Chanina says Eine masker. You don't have to mention anything about Rosh chodesh in benching. Amar Rav Zrike. So Rav Zrike said Nekoit the Rav b'yotcha. You should take Rav's opinion and follow it. The Koi Rav Oishia kavasei, because Rav Oishia also says like Rav. The Tani Rav Oishia said in a brayser. Yomim, so he said the following rule. Yomim sheyesh bem carbon mussaf, the days that you bring a special carbon mussaf in the Beis Hamikdash, kagayin Rosh chodesh, chayla shal mayid, on Rosh chodesh, on chal mayid, and of course this includes Shabbos and Yom Tov as well. Arvis v'shachris and mincha, mispal shmei nesre. So by all the tefillas, when you daven shmei nesre, va'oime me'eina ma'ura ba'avayda, and you say Ya'alav Yaveh, mentioning the day, the Rosh chodesh or the Yom Tov in the bracha of Ritzei. Ve'im lo yomar, and if you did not say machzirin oisai, you have to daven again, because this is a day that's minat Torah, a special day, and there's a special carbon mussaf. The aim bem kedusha lakais. However, these days that are mentioned here, Rosh chodesh, chol hamoed, do not have the halacha of saying making kiddush. There's no din of kiddush like on Shabbos and Yom Tiv. The yesh ben askara bebirchas hamazon. But you also, besides mentioning it in Shmei Nesrei, you also have to say Ya'alav Yaveh and mention Rosh chodesh or the Yom Tiv and chol hamoed in benching. So these are the days that have a special carbon mussaf. Yomim she'ein bem carbon mussaf, those days that do not have a carbon mussaf. And it says here in the Braise, kagon sheni v'chamishi, Monday or Thursday, a tiny is a mamodos, or on days of fasts and the days of the mamodos. The mamodos are the mamodos that were done in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, that people that would fast while the carbon was being brought. So there were people, all of Klal Yisrael really should be there by the carbon tzibur, but it's impossible. So the concept of a maimed is that there are people that are designated that they fast on those days for the carbonis that are brought for Klal Yisrael. Okay, so on these days there's no carbon mussaf. So the Gemara interjects and asks, what is this Sheni v'chamishi? Why is it mentioning in the Braisa Sheni v'chamishi? There's no carbon mussaf. Why should there be? It's a regular weekday. Sheni v'chamishi mai v'detayu. Why is this Braisa mentioning that on a Monday and a Thursday that there's no carbon mussaf? Elo, so the Gemara explains the pshat here. Sheni v'chamishi v'sheni shel tainiyos. In a time when they were fasting. When a time when there's no rain, there's certain times the Gemara in Tainus explains when you have to fast, and they fasted on Sheni v'chamishi v'sheni, and there's a special Tainus and Mamodos, and also the Maimodos, which are the people that were saying special things for the Karbanis, and they also fasted on those days. Rashi brings it that they fasted on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So even though they're fasting, Arvis, Shachris, and Mincha, going back to the Braise now, so Ma'ariv, Shachris, and Mincha, Mispal Shmei Nesra, they daven Shmei Nesra, V'oyme me'ein ha'me'ureh b'shemei tefillah, since they're fasting, so you say the bracha of Aneinu in the bracha of Shemei tefillah and Shmei Nesra, but V'im loy omar, ein machzirin oisa. If you forget to say Aneinu, you don't have to daven over again. Ve'im bem kedusha lakais, there's no kiddush, and there's other svarim take this out because it's obvious, it's a fast, so you're not making kiddush. Ve'im bem maskore bebirchas hamazon, and in benching, this would refer to at night, whether the night before the fast, Rashi says, or the night after the fast. When you're eating, so you don't have to say anything in connection to the fast in the benching the night before or after. So over here we see the rule that when it comes to a day where there's a special carbon mussaf, you definitely have to mention in Shmei Nesra and in benching Ya'alav Yaveh for that day. But if it's a fast day or something else, so there's an aneinu that you say in Shemei Tefillah, but there's no askara in benching the night before or night after. And this would theoretically apply to Chanukah as well. that on Chanukah, since it's only midrabanan, there's no special carbon mussaf, so there's no inyan to mention it in Shmei Nesra or in benching. But by Chanukah, there was a special takana, then in Shmei Nesra it must be said. That's the takana of Persumei Nisa. And also, as we learned before, mitzad the inyan of Persumei Nisa, it should be said, and you could say it in benching as well. Sagt der Gemara weiter, now going back to Chanukah, mentioning Ala Nisim in Shmei Nesra. So in Shmei Nesra, it's definitely a chiyuv to say Ala Nisim. Ma ola haskish al Chanukah b'musafin. Do you have to mention Chanukah, say Ala Nisim when you're davening musaf on Rosh chodesh or Shabbos that falls out on Chanukah? Kivin the lesbei mussaf b'didei. Since Chanukah itself does not require any mussaf, you're not davening mussaf because of Chanukah. Leimat kerinon. So therefore you don't mention it. It's you're only saying mussaf because of the Shabbos or because of Rosh chodesh. Or perhaps Yom Hu Shechayev Ba'arba Tfilas. Since this is a day that you have to daven 4 tefillas, you have to daven an additional tefillah of Musaf, so therefore you have to mention Ala Nisim in this tefillah as well. So do we look at the reason of the tefillah? The reason of the tefillah of Musaf has nothing to do with Chanukah. The reason of the tefillah is because of Shabbos or Rosh chodesh, so it's unrelated to Chanukah and you don't mention Chanukah? Or do you say, no, but B'Poil, the day requires 4 tefillahs, so therefore you do mention Chanukah in the tefillah of Musaf on Shabbos and Rosh chodesh that is on Chanukah. So the Gemara brings the machlekes, Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda damri tarvayu. Both Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda said, Eina masker. In the Musaf, you don't mention Chanukah. That's a Musaf for Shabbos, Musaf for Rosh chodesh. It's nothing to do with Chanukah. Rav Nachman, Rav Yechanan damri tarvayu. Rav Nachman and Rav Yechanan both said, masker. You do mention Chanukah even in the Musaf of Shabbos or Rosh chodesh. Amar Abaye le Rav Yosef. So now Abaye said to Rav Yosef, Ho, the Rav Huna Rav Yehuda. The opinion of Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda that you do not mention Chanukah in the Musaf, the Ravhu. This is really Rav's opinion. The Amar Rav Gidl Amar Rav, because we see that Rav Gidl Amar Rav said the following halacha. Rosh chodesh chaliyas b'Shabbos. When Rosh chodesh falls out on Shabbos, and you say the brachas for the Haftarah. So what do you finish off? How do you finish off the brach of the Haftarah? Do you finish off Mekadesh HaShabbos, like every Shabbos? Or do you have to mention Rosh chodesh in the brach of the Haftarah as well? Mekadesh HaShabbos and V'Rosh Chodashim. So what did Rav say? Hamafter b'Novi b'Shabbos. When you're saying the brachas of the Haftarah on Shabbos that fell out on Rosh chodesh, ein tzarich lahaskish Rosh chodesh. You don't mention Rosh chodesh in the bracha on the Haftarah. Why? Shel mali Shabbos. If not for the fact that it was Shabbos, ein navi b'Rosh chodesh. There is no Haftarah of Rosh chodesh. So since the whole Haftarah is being said for Shabbos, although it's also Rosh chodesh, you don't mention Rosh chodesh. It's not being said for Rosh chodesh. No, so the Gemara is comparing the same thing over here. On Chanukah, when you're saying a mussaf for Shabbos or for Rosh chodesh, since the mussaf is being said for Shabbos and for Rosh chodesh, for Chanukah you don't say a mussaf, so you don't mention Ala Nisim, you don't mention Chanukah in the mussaf. So the Gemara doesn't like this comparison. Mi dami. How could you compare the din of Rav regarding the Haftarah to our case, beneged to saying Ala Nisim in Musaf? Hasam navi b'Rosh chodesh leka klal. There is no such a thing b'chlal to say a Haftarah on any Rosh chodesh whatsoever. So therefore, if you're making the bracha on the Haftarah, you only mention Shabbos. Hacha over here on Chanukah, isei ba'arvis v'shachris u'mincha. There is a chiyuv to mention Ala Nisim in Ma'ariv, Shachris and Mincha. Alright, so if you're davening Musaf and it's another chiyuv of Tefillah on this day, so there's definitely a svara to mention Chanukah as well in this Tefillah. So the Gemara brings another source. Maybe there's another case where we find that what Rav said could be a source for what Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda said, that you don't mention Chanukah in Musaf of Rosh chodesh or Shabbos. Ela so lahadamya. We could maybe compare this din to another case of Rav. Damar Rav Achtavaya Marav Masna Marav Yom Tov shechaliyas b'Shabbos. If Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, hamafter b'Novi b'Mincha b'Shabbos. When you say mafter in the Navi at Mincha time on Shabbos. So this is something that's unusual. We don't do this today. We don't say any mafter by the laning at Mincha time on Shabbos. So Rashi here brings that he found in the Tshuva of the Gainim that in those times they would say a haftarah even on the Mincha of Shabbos. As I bring Rashi, But then Rashi says there was a gzeira that they stopped it, and therefore was discontinued, this minik. That's what Rashi says. Taisus brings b'shem Rabbeinu Tam that they wouldn't read from Navi, but they would read from Ksuvim. Even though the Gemara says Navi, but really the Gemara means from Ksuvim. They would read from Ksuvim on Shabbos by Mincha time. Okay, but obviously this is not our minik today. But according to this minik, that on Shabbos, by Mincha, they would read Mafter. So Rav said, Ein tzarech lahasker shel Yom Tov. In the bracha on the Haftarah by Shabbos Mincha, you don't have to mention Yom Tov. Why? Shel malei Shabbos. If not for Shabbos, Ein novi b'mincha b'Yom Tov. There's no Haftarah by Mincha time on Yom Tov. Now, so this is a case that we could compare to the question that we're talking about, mentioning Chanukah in mussaf on Rosh chodesh Shabbos, because when you say the Haftarah Shabbos morning that fell out on Rosh chodesh, you do have to say Mekadesh HaShabbos v'Yisrael v'Hazmanim, because even Yom Tov requires a Haftarah for Shabbos morning. But nevertheless, even though for Shabbos morning you are mentioning it, but when it comes Mincha, and Mincha does not require a Haftarah for the Yom Tov, so you only mention Mekadesh HaShabbos. So similarly, we can say that Rav would hold L'gabi Chanukah, although you have to mention Al Anisim and Shachris, Mincha and Ma'ariv, but not for the Mussaf. Mussaf is a Shabbos-dige thing or a Shchaydish-dige thing, and over there you don't mention Chanukah in the mussaf. The Gemara, the conclusion, however, is v'les hilchase k'chol anishmaitase. However, we do not paskin like any of these rayas and like these dinim that we just mentioned. Ella, rather, we paskin like based on what Rabbi Shua ben Levi said. Ki hadam Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, Yoyim HaKippurim shechaliyas b'Shabbos. Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos. Hamispalel ne'ilah. When you're davening ne'ilah, tzarech lahaska shel Shabbos. You have to mention Shabbos in the brachas of Shmei Nasr and ne'ilah, because Yoyim Hushan is chayiv ba'arba tfilis. The day is Nischayev in the 4 tefillis, besides the night before Ma'ariv, the day is Nischayev in 4 tefillis, and therefore, since the day is Shabbos, you have to mention Shabbos even in Ne'ilah. So the same thing applies also to Chanukah, that the day is Nischayev in Musaf, and you have to mention Al Anisim in Chanukah, of course, like the minig, like the halacha that we do. So now the Gemara asks on this, Kashya Hilchase Ahilchase. However, here there's going to be a question from the fact that we're paskening like Rabbi Shua ben Levi on another halacha. Amrit hilchasek Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Here we're saying that the halacha is like Rabbi Shua ben Levi, that on Yom Kippur you have to mention Shabbos even in Ne'ilah. The Kaimalon hilchasek Rava, and we also know that we pasken like Rava. The Amar Rava. Rava said, Yom Tov shechaliyas b'Shabbos. If Yom Tov falls out on a Shabbos. So now, there's usually the difference between you daven Ma'ariv on Shabbos and when you daven Ma'ariv on Yom Tov, there's a difference. Then you get to the Birchas Me'ein Sheva. When you say after Shmei Nasra, when the Chazan does a short Chazaras Hashatz, so that brach of Me'ein Sheva is only said on Shabbos. They weren't misakin to say it on Yom Tov. So now when Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, so you say it as well, because it's Shabbos, so you say this Birchas Me'ein Sheva. The question though is, when you conclude the bracha, do you conclude Mekadesh HaShabbos, or do you have to conclude Mekadesh HaShabbos v'Yisrael v'Hazmanim in that bracha that's mentioned on Shabbos, that Yom Tov fell out on Shabbos? So what did Rava say? Yom Tov shechaliyas b'Shabbos. Shliach tzibur hayored lefnei ateva arvis. The shliach tzibur that's davening for the Amid Ma'ariv. Einet tzarech lahaska shel Yom Tov. When he's saying the bracha of Me'ein Sheva after Shmei Nasr, the short Chazaras Hashatz, you don't mention Yom Tov in that bracha. Why? She'il malei Shabbos. If not for the fact that it's Shabbos, ein shliach tzibur yored arvis b'Yom Tov. You don't do that Chazaras Hashatz. You don't say the Me'ein Sheva for Yom Tov. It's only being said for Shabbos. No, so what do you see over here? What did Rava say? That since the whole Chazaras Hashatz is being done for Shabbos, and Yom Tov does not require this, so you don't mention Yom Tov. So how does that, and we paskin like Rava, how does that fit with what Rabbi Shua ben Levi said? Rabbi Shua ben Levi said that you mention Shabbos on Yom Kippur in Ne'ilah, even though Shabbos doesn't require Ne'ilah. Over here we say that if Yom Tov doesn't require the Birchas Me'ein Sheva, you don't mention Yom Tov, you only say Shabbos. So how do we fit these two halachas together? Sagt the Gemara, Hachi Hashta. How can we compare the two? Hasam, when it comes to Shabbos, bidin hu, really the halacha should be that afilu b'Shabbos nami lo tzarich. You don't do Chazaras Hashatz even on Shabbos, right? On a regular night of Ma'ariv, do you do any Chazaras Hashatz? There's no Chazaras Hashatz at all. What is it that on Shabbos that you do this partial Chazaras Hashatz, which is called Mein Sheva? Why is it? V'Rabbanan hu ditikuni. This is a special takana midrabanan, mishum sakana. They made this only for a sakana, and as Rashi explains, in those times, people came home from work and it was dark at night. They did not go out to shul to daven ma'ariv. They daven ma'ariv at home. Shabbos, people came to shul to daven, but because it was a sakana to go to shul, the shuls were further out. There was mazikim. It was a sakana. So on Shabbos, they wanted to prolong the davening a little bit for people that are not finished the davening, so they should be able to walk back home together and not stay alone in the shul. That's the only reason why they added this short Chazaras Hashatz for the sakana. But really, even Shabbos, you don't have to mention the mitzad ikar adin. There's no inyan of Chazaras Hashatz by Ma'ariv. Aval hacha yom hu. So that's why over there, even Shabbos, you don't really need this whole Chazaras Hashatz. It's just a special takana midrabana mishum sakana. So when Yontif falls out on Shabbos, they weren't misakin to add in Yontif into that nusach of the bracha as well. The whole thing is just a takana midrabanan for a sakana. Aval hacha, but when it comes to Yom Kippur, that Shabbos falls out on Yom Kippur, Yom Hushan is chayiv bar b'tfilas. This is a day that's in chayiv in 4 tfilas, including Ne'ilah. Ne'ilah is one of the tfilas of Shabbos, and they are this Shabbos of this Yom Kippur, and therefore you have to mention Shabbos in Ne'ilah. Sagt die Gemara weiter. Now we go back to the Mishnah. One more small thing that it mentioned in the Mishnah, where it said that you shouldn't use the fats of an animal from a tail, an alya, or a chaylev, other fats you should not use for the Shabbos candles. Then the Mishnah brought Nachum Hamadai says that as long as the fats is cooked and it's melted, so then you could use it. Then the Mishnah said a third opinion, whether it's congealed or whether it's melted, either way you can't use any of these fats. Frag the Gemara. Chachamim, haina Tanakama. It seems like Chachamim are the same as the Tanakama. Nachum Hamadai is the one that said that if it's melted, you could use it. The Tanakama did not make that distinction. Chachamim are clearly saying there's no distinction. So the Tanakama and the Chachamim seem to be saying the exact same thing. And for the Gemara, Ikke Beinayu, the difference between the Tanakama and the Chachamim is the Rav Bruna, the halacha that was mentioned before in Daf Chof Aleph from Rav Bruna Omarav. What's the halacha of Rav Bruna Omarav? When you take melted fats or dissolved from the innards of a fish and it was dissolved, and you add a little bit of good oil, a little bit of acceptable oil, could that work or not? So Rav Bruna Marav says you could use it. So what the Gemara now is saying is the Tanakama and the Chachamim and the Mishnah are arguing about this point. Could you add a little bit of the good oil and then you could use this dissolved fats? But the Gemara says, but v'loi misaimi. It's not clear between the Tanakama and the Chachamim who holds that you could use it and who holds you can't use it. But this point is the chiluk between the Tanakama and the Chachamim. We begin a new Mishnah. Sagt the Mishnah, Ein madlikin b'shemen sreifa b'yomtiv. You do not light shemen sreifa, which is, as we learned already before in the first Mishnah, from truma tameya, that is, tomei truma. So you can't use that to light on yomtiv. Rabbi Shmuel says, Ein madlikin be'itron. You can't light with itron. Itron is some oily substance that comes from tar. Mipnei kavod HaShabbos, because of the kavod of Shabbos, and the reason is, as Rashi says, it has a bad smell. Chachamim matirin. Chachamim are matir b'chol hashmanim. You can use any of the oils. B'shemen shumshemin. You can use sesame seed oil. B'shemen agayzim. Oils from nuts. B'shemen tznainis, oil that comes from radishes, from the nuts or the pits or the seeds of the radishes. B'shemen dogim, oils that come from fish. B'shemen pekuais, the shemen that comes from, some say it's a turnip or it's similar to a watermelon, some kind of a seeds that comes from this. B'itron, you can use this itron that was mentioned before, has a bad smell. Or b'neft, it's also a kind of oily substance that comes from tar. All of this could be used on Yontif or on Shabbos even, according to the Chachamim. Tarfan opinion is Ein madlikin elo b'shemen zayis bilvad. You could only light with olive oil. That's the best oil, as we learned before in the Gemara. So you could only light that creates the nicest and clearest and brightest fire. You should only light with olive oil. So now the Gemara is going to start with the first halacha of the Mishnah. You can't light shemen sreifa on Yom Tov, which is truma tmeya. Why can't you light truma tmeya on the oil of truma tmeya on Yom Tov? Sagt the Gemara, my timer, what's the reason of this din? Lefisha ein surfen kachim be Yom Tov. Because you can't burn kachim on Yom Tov. As the Gemara will bring a few sources for this, that you can't burn kachim on Yom Tov. So just like you can't burn kachim on Yom Tov, so too you can't burn truma tmeya on Yom Tov. Okay, so when we're talking about kachim over here, so the Gemara is going to bring the source. Mat Taisvis over here discusses kachim is one thing, and truma tmeya is another thing. They're not the same at all. Kachim, when you burn kachim, you're not allowed to have any hana of that fire that you make of this, let's say, noiser. Psule kachim. Psule kachim noiser, for example. A person has leftovers from kachim, and there's a mitzvah saseh to burn it. What do you do with noiser? Noiser be'esh t'sreif. There's a mitzvah saseh to burn the noiser of kachim. Leftover of a carbon, right? So that noiser you're not allowed to burn on Yom Tov. That's what the Gemara is saying here. Now truma tmeya is different though. Truma tmeya, while you're burning it, you're allowed to have use out of it. You can put it in a fireplace. You could put it under a pot to make a fire, to cook with it. So there's a very big difference between kachim and truma tmeya. So Taisus over here asks this question: how does the Gemara compare kachim to truma tmeya? Let's first finish the Gemara and then we'll come back and I'll explain what Taisus says in this. So first, let's see the sources for the fact that you can't burn, that is, noiser of kachim on Yom Tov. And Rashi here explains the reason why we have to have a special limud is because burning noiser is a mitzvah saseh. It says be'esh t'sreifu, mitzvah saseh, not doing malacha on Yom Tov for things that are not oichel nefesh. This is the halacha on Yom Tov. Right? Shabbos and Yom Tov are different in this regard. By Shabbos, all malachas are aser. On Yom Tov, malachas are aser, but a malacha that's for the purpose of oichel nefesh, for preparing food, is mutter. So kachim, it's not for the purpose of preparing food. You're not having any anah of it. So there is a lav that you're not allowed to do the malacha of burning it on Yom Tov, but there's a mitzvah saseh to burn the noiser. Usually the halacha is a mitzvah saseh is doicha alay saseh. So why in this case can't you burn the noiser, which is a mitzvah saseh, on Yom Tov? The mitzvah saseh to burn it should push off the lay saseh. So therefore the Gemara brings a few sources for this. From where do we know that you can't burn the noiser of kachim on Yom Tov? Omar Chizkiah said, V'chein Tana de Bei Chizkiah, it was learned in the yeshiva of Chizkiah, Omar Kra. The pasuk says, and this is actually by the Korban Pesach, when it talks about a person that left over from the Korban Pesach on the morning, on the first day of Yom Tov, V'lo yisisiru mimeno ad boker, shouldn't leave over from it to the morning. Whatever is left over till the morning, then the pasuk concludes be'esh t'sreifu. There's the mitzvah to burn it. So the Gemara asks, she'ein tamid loymar ad boker. You didn't have to say a second time ad boker. Why does the pasuk say twice ad boker? Ma tamid loymar ad boker. Why does the pasuk say a second time, do not leave it over until the morning? So the answer is Ba hakosov litin loy boike sheni l'sreifasai. The Torah is telling you, you may not leave it over until the first morning. However, the mitzvah of be'esh t'sreifu you could only fulfill the following morning, which is Chol HaMoed, not on Yom Tov. So from here we see that you can't burn the noiser on Yom Tov itself. You have to wait until Chol HaMoed to burn the noiser. That's the source that Chizkiah said. Abaya argues and says a different source. Amakra, the pasuk says in the parasha where it talks about the carbon tamid, oilas Shabbos b'Shabbatoi. The oila of Shabbos could be brought on the mizbeach and burnt on Shabbos. V'loi oilas chayil b'Shabbos. From here we'll learn out that if there's leftovers of the carbon of Friday that has to be burnt on the mizbeach, it can't be brought on the mizbeach on Shabbos. V'loi oilas chayil b'Yom Tov. And we also learn out from here that you can't bring from a weekday to be burnt on Yom Tov as well. Right? So the Shabbos b'Shabbatoi, Taisus explains it goes on Shabbos, it goes on Yom Tov. The Rishonim speak about this. L'chayra, the pasuk is only speaking about Shabbos. It's not speaking about Yom Tov. But nevertheless, the Braisa learns out that it goes both on karbanos that are left over from the weekday to burn on Shabbos, or on Yom Tov, it can't be done. So therefore Rashi says, just like you're not allowed to burn on the Mizbeach the leftover pieces of the karbanos from the weekday on Shabbos or on Yom Tov, so too it's understood that the noiser that has to be burnt as well should not be burnt on Yom Tov either. That's Abaye's source. Rava brings a third source. Omakra, the pasuk says, Hu levadoi ye'aseh lachem. These two words of Hu levadoi are extra words. This is the pasuk where it talks about the malacha that may not be done on Yom Tif, and the pasuk says that the only thing that may be done on Yom Tif is the malacha of oichel nefesh, preparing food for Yom Tif. And the actual pasuk is, Rashi brings it here, ach asher ya'achel lechol nefesh, and then the pasuk adds in, hu levadei, that alone ye'aseh lachem. So Rashi says these two words of hu levadei are extra. The pasuk could have just said, ach asher ya'achel lechol nefesh, ye'aseh lachem. That's what you're allowed to prepare on Yom Tif. What do we learn from these two extra words, hu levadai? So there's two extra words here. From the word hu we learn out, v'loi machshirin. You're allowed to prepare the food, but not the preparatory steps for preparing the food. And Rashi gives two examples over here. For a person to prepare a knife, if he doesn't have a knife, or to prepare a shpud, the metal, or a spit that's used to cook with, or to build an oven. That all of those preparatory steps, it's called machshirei oichel nefesh. All of those things have to be done before Yom Tov. As we'll learn about this in Mitzvah in Masechta Beya Barichis, the difference between oichel nefesh and machshirei oichel nefesh, that's not included. That's what we learn out from who? Then levadai, from the extra word of levadai we learn out v'loi mile shaloi bizmano, and you can't perform a bris shaloi bizmano if it's not on the 8th day. Once the bris is not on the 8th day, so it can be done on any other day. So you don't perform that bris on Yom Tif. The asya b'kal v'chaymer, although there would have been a kal v'chaymer to say that you should be able to do it on Yom Tif, and Rashi here brings the kal v'chaymer. It's a Gemara later on Daf Kuf Lamed Beis. It's a little bit of a complicated kal v'chaymer. We'll leave it in Mitzvah. We get to the Gemara on Kuf Lamed Beis, we'll see what the kal v'chaymer is. But there is a kal v'chaymer that logically I would think that you could make a bris even shaloi bizmana on Yom Tif. From the word levadoi, we learn out that a bris shaloi bizmana is not done on Yom Tif. So Rashi says, just like we learn out that you can't do machshirei echol nefesh on Yom Tif, and you can't do a bris shaloi bizmana on Yom Tif, so too we learn out from here that the noiser should not be burnt on Yom Tif either, and you push it off to the next day.
The safest kachim.
The noiser, which is the safest kachim, correct. Burning kachim is pushed off to the next day and not on Yom Tif. So that's the end of the Gemara for today. Now, if I have a few moments here, it's a shorter blot for today. Let me go back to what we spoke about before, beneged to the fact that the Mishnah talks about using shemen sreifa, which is truma tmeya, to use that on Yom Tif. And the Gemara here is bringing the source regarding not burning kachim, noiser on Yom Tif. So as I mentioned, Taisus asks the question, what's the connection between the two? They're not the same. By kachim, while you're burning the noiser of the kachim, you're not allowed to have any hana of it whatsoever. So it's obvious that if we have a pasuk for that we're talking about a kind of case where what you're burning, you could have no hana of it. Mashenke, when it comes to truma tmeya is something that while you're burning it, you can use it in a fireplace, you can use it to cook under a pot, you could have hana of it. So why are we comparing that to burning kachim? So Taisvis asks this question in a few places, here in Masechta Psachim, in Masechta Beya, and Taisvis answers over here and in Masechta Beya, and I'll mention what Taisvis says in Masechta Beya. Over here Taisvis says similar, that because you're burning the Truma Tmeya for the mitzvah that there is to burn the Truma Tmeya, when Truma could be eaten, you're supposed to eat it, but when the Truma is Tamei, you're supposed to burn it. So you're doing the mitzvah to burn of burning it. So whatever personal use you might be having of it while you're burning it doesn't matter, doesn't count. It's secondary and it's bottle, and we just look at the fact that the main action that you're doing is doing the mitzvah of burning tamei truma, and therefore we compare it to kachim that can't be done on Yom Tov. Let me read you the lashon that Taisva says in Masechta Beya. When you're burning the truma tmeya, you're doing it for the purpose of the mitzvah. So whatever the person is doing, whatever benefit he's deriving of it while he's doing the mitzvah is batal. We don't pay attention to that. It's going to be similar to burning the noiser, the kachim of Yom Tov, which is completely done for the sake of burning the kachim, and there you may not have any benefit whatsoever. So the question that the Mefarshim ask on this is, what's the pshat in this answer? I mean, the fact is that there is a tzarech hedyet. He is having benefit of it. He is using it for himself. And on Yontif, anytime you make a fire and you use something, you have a hana from it, there's a heter on Yontif. So what does this mean? Because you're doing it for a mitzvah, we don't pay attention to the fact that while he's doing the mitzvah, he's thinking about it, that he's using it for himself. Why don't we pay attention to that? So the Rebbe in a Sikha here brings an example for this, an interesting example from the Gemara Masechta Shabbos, B'negei to Hitzah. You find a Mishnah later on Daf Tzad Gimel, B'negei to the Halacha of Hitzah. A person that, when it comes to the Malacha of Hitzah, there's shiurim, the amounts of what's the minimum amount that it should be counted for Hitzah. How about if a person is carrying a piece of food that's less than the minimum shear of carrying on Shabbos? So you're not chayiv. Now he took that piece of food and he placed it into a keli. The keli is large enough to be chayiv on Eitzah. But his intention, his kavanah, is not to take out the keli. He wants to take out the piece of food. He's only using the keli to take out the food. So the halacha the Mishnah says is, Hamaitzi eichlem pachas mikashir bekeli, Potter afala keli. You're going to be potter on the keli as well. Shah keli tfeiloloi. His kavana is to take out the food. The keli becomes tafel. It's a very big chiddush, but this is the halacha. Although you're doing a pu'ula, which is a mamash malacha, and you have a keli which has the shear of the malacha. But nevertheless, if your main kavana is the hitzah of the food, the keli becomes tafel and bottle, and there's no issur of hitzah over here. So the Rebbe said we can say the same thing over here in the pshat of the Taisvis. You're burning the Trumat Meya. You're burning the Trumat Meya because it's a mitzvah to burn the Trumat Meya. That's your main purpose. L'tzayrach gevaya. The fact that while he's doing that, he's not allowing it to go to waste and he's having a use of it otherwise, that's secondary. That's not his main kavana. That's bottle. We don't pay attention to that. That's the source we see over here from the halacha of Hitzah. Then the Rebbe says that on a deeper level we can take a Chassidus Shavart, we can take a message from this, that when a person is using something for a mitzvah, and then while he's doing it for a mitzvah, there's his own personal benefit that he has from it, what's more chashuv? The mitzvah is the chshivas. The main thing of the whole existence of it is for the sake of the mitzvah. That's the main chshivas that it has. Whatever personal benefit that he has of it, that's not the purpose of its creation. The emes and mitzias of the whole thing is for the mitzvah. And therefore that's what has the real chshivas. Whatever else he's doing does not have the real chshivas of it. So therefore, that's the pshat over here in this Indian that the Gemara compares Trumat Meya to the kachim, that both of them are also to be done on Yom Tov. That's the end of the share for today. Tzlocha Rabba, everybody and everything. Your preparations for Pesach. I'm sure everybody began preparing already for Pesach, whether cleaning your houses, whether preparing a Pesach Maimer or something else for Pesach. Beruchni is to prepare for Pesach. And Eibusha should help that we should prepare this year Pesach for eating the Korban Pesach, the Korban Chagiga, and Erev Pesach this year. We should all be in Yerushalayim, Yirah Kodesh. Even before then, b'meheira v'yameinu mamish.